So several years ago, we started to scrape line scores from a particular website and started to wonder what we could learn from that. And we created initially an understanding of what we call tactical efficiencies. How good are we with and without the hammer in relation to the opposition? Are we good at stealing in relation to the opposition? But then one of the coaches started to say, could we understand scoreboard management a little bit about when should we be trying to be more aggressive or more defensive in a game? So the opportunity for us was, how could we start to get sport knowledge from that understanding, and how could we perhaps even affect live decision making at the competitions from that understanding? As I say, the great first conversations and the impressive conversations were how quickly your team understood what the performance questions were and took time to understand the sport. So quite quickly the conversations were very knowledgeable in both parts, you know. So the first task was trying to understand what did the database looks like. So Elite Sports Analysis manage our database on behalf of British Curling, and in there, Lorna, we have about 25,000 matches across men's, women's, mixed doubles and para wheelchair curling disciplines. So the tool ended up having two features. One was just a lovely big table that basically said at any stage of the game for any scoreline, what was the probability of winning? So in other words, from the 5,000 matches where somebody was 2 up with 3 against to play, how many teams went on to win? And that number populated that cell. So you can imagine this great big table showing 10 ends, 9 ends, 8 ends, so on, left to play, scores, 1 up, 1 down, 2 up, 2 down, and so on. So we had this massive big box that gave us all that insight. The nice thing from there was then, it was quite difficult to say, now if we score a 2, where does that take us to in this table? It was quite challenging to follow it through. So they created a really nice visualization that allowed us just to basically tap in, okay, we've got 3 ends to go and we're 2 points behind. And it gave us this little graph that said, okay, if you score a 1 now, here's the change in probability. If you lose a 1, here's the... So we were able to immediately go from the table, which was all encompassing, to then a direct question. And therefore you were able to see the risk reward at any given game state probability. So it was brilliant. The coach would be able to say, you know, if we just score a 1 here, we're really out of the running for winning this match. This is an end we have to be aggressive, and although it might backfire, it might as well backfire as just be a 1. Let's go for the 2 or 3, because look what it does to the probability. But from a coaching point of view, it's really nice. We can address it in 2 ways. As teams practice on ice, they will work on technique, but they also work on game strategy. So what's really nice is a coach can just flick up that model and say, okay, let's have a look at this game state probability model. Let's go to 4 ends to play, we're 1 up but without the hammer. Let's have a look at what the normal rhythm to game conclusion would look like. Okay, if that's not a positive one of us just going through the motions, what might be a more appropriate tactical stance to take? Or if we have to gamble, or if we have to be defensive. So they will practice tactical scenarios in relation to that knowledge. So there's a nice focus to those technical sessions. The other thing we get is, in the actual competition scenario, first of all, I feed in scouting opposition based on those game state probabilities about our opposition. Have they got particular traits or strengths or weaknesses in relation to those probability models? And also, our coaches will then impact within the game. So now in curling, only in recent years are you allowed to interact with your team on an end-by-end basis. It used to only be at the half-time break. So now a skip can come up to the coach's bench, and somebody like Dave Murdoch or our team coaches would just say, look, now's a time to press the button. Now's a time to be cautious. And we've got that every end opportunity to influence their thinking and their stone by stone management. So that's been a really nice thing that was never possible before. Before, Lorna, to be honest, it was based on folklore. You know, people saying, I prefer coming home one down but with the hammer compared to one up without the hammer, last stone advantage. And that was just based on their memory, their hunches. Now we're able to say, what does that look like for the population? What does that look like for your category of team? What does it actually look like for your team? So now you can actually play to an evidence-based approach rather than an old traditional one. So that's been a really nice thing for us, and we've used it in earnest since the 2021 World Championships. So you'll see Dave Murdoch with his laptop open. You'll see conversations about that, and I'm privy to it in the debriefs we do after the game, where I leave my position of filming and vantage to join them in the dressing room afterwards, where we then debrief with the data and with the game state probability model. So impact is definitely there.